Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda, and today I have for you my February reading wrap up. This month I'm going to do my wrap up in a little different format than I usually do. Usually I just go down my list of basically whatever book I wrote I was reading first. Doesn't necessarily mean I finished it in any particular order, but this time I am taking inspiration 100% from Chelsea at Chelsea Darling Reads and going with my least favorite book up to my most favorite book for the month. So to get started, the book that I gave the lowest rating this month was Still Me by Jojo Moyes. This is the last book in the Me Before You trilogy, and I listened to it on audiobook through my library. It was a 13-hour and 19-minute book that I gave a 2-star rating. I kind of decided with the second book, and definitely concrete decision made with the ending of the third book, that I was just going to pretend that Me Before You was a standalone. I didn't really like the way the events took place after Me Before You and the thing that happened. I thought it was a stretch to keep the story going, but one of my least favorite relationship tropes was in Still Me and in After You, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And that was just a lack of communication within relationships. This book has a long distance relationship in it between New York and London, which is like a 5-hour time difference. I work with people who live in Dundee, Scotland, so I deal with an 8-hour time difference. And so I know how communication can be, and keeping relationships alive and things like that. Like, obviously not romantic relationships, but work relationships. So I know how important it is just to be open and honest and communicative, especially when, like in this instance, you have jealous partners, and you just have to be honest with them because otherwise they're going to form their own conclusions, and obviously there's going to be a fight and things like that. So I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping to, because I do really like Me Before You. I know for some people it's a book with a lot of problem areas, but for me it's just a book that I enjoy the story of, and it really hits me hard in the heart. But then to move on from Still Me, talking about the second book in the series, which I liked slightly more than the third. This is After You by Jojo Moyes. I own a physical copy, but I think I'm going to probably unhaul it because, like I said, I want to think of Me Before You as a standalone. So I also listened to this book through my library, and it was 11 hours and 6 minutes, so just a little shorter than Still Me. And this one I gave probably the low end of 3-star rating. I don't do like half points or anything like that, so I round up and down. So this one just is a solid 3-star rating, but I think the low end of 3 stars. And again, I thought the big reveal of this story was just pretty far-fetched, just to basically increase or continue on the story and continue on with sales and stuff. I think it was a little odd, and I didn't like it. So I think the relationships were a little better in this one, but we're introduced to a teenager, and oh my gosh, is she like the epitome of a teenager that I can't wrap my mind around because I was never like that as a teenager. But she's all the things that you would expect the definition of a teenager to be. So it was an interesting story. I'm glad I finally got to finish the series because now I know I wasn't really missing anything. But yeah, so it was a little disappointing for me, but overall, silver lining is that I'm glad I finished the series. So the next book I have was a recommendation to me by Skylar's mom, and that is The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. I own the physical copy here. I listened to the Audible version on Audible, obviously, because Skylar had expressed an interest in wanting to read this book after hearing his mom talk about it. And I'm so upset at how disappointed I was with this story. The audiobook version of it was 10 hours and 56 minutes. And I gave this a 3-star rating because I really did like the world and the writing style of John Connolly. It's just that this is middle grade, and I think at this point I need to put middle grade down for a while. I am not young enough where I can relate to the characters anymore, and I'm not quite old enough where I feel like I can find their actions endearing. I just wonder why. But another big thing that bothered me in this book, and I did touch on, I read this during the Enchantathon Readathon that was hosted by Paige over at Creating & Co. And I talked a little bit more about it during that, but there's some animal cruelty in this. And as I think about my stance on like cruelty-free products and going vegan and things like that, I've been bothered more by animals being hunted or hurt or manipulated in any kind of way in books, and unfortunately that's just not something I can dissociate from. I can't sit and look at this as like, oh, it's just in writing. So that was a big turnoff for me in this book. But if you do like retellings, this has quite a few in there. You follow a 12-year-old boy named David who loses his mother to an illness, and his father remarries, and when they go to her family estate, he is given her, was it her great uncle's room? I believe that's what it is, and there's a whole bunch of books in this room, which is perfect for David because he loves reading. But these books, a lot of them are fairy tales, and they start to talk to him. And he's not entirely sure what's going on, but he eventually gets pulled into this fairy tale world and has to go on this quest to find the king of the land who will send him home. So along the way, he meets some interesting characters. You've got the crooked man up here who is, he's an interesting character, not a very good one, and just things like that. So you watch David grow, and I think there is quite a bit of character development. But again, just wasn't for me for those little things that might not bother somebody else. I think Skylar will probably enjoy this quite a bit more than I did, and probably a lot of people if you can dissociate yourself from the animal cruelty and if you like middle grade books. But I'm starting to find that they just aren't for me anymore, which is a little upsetting, but there is that. The next book I have is another retelling. It is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan McGuire. This is technically the second book in the Wayward Children series, but it is the prequel to Every Heart a Doorway, and this story follows Jack and Jill and the world that they enter. So I believe theirs is a world based off logic, and you just follow the twin girls and kind of how their relationship evolves and changes as they grow up with the parenting that they are subject to, and then with the decisions they have to make once they come into this world. I did read the physical copy. These are really short books, under 200 pages. And this one was 187. I gave it a 3-star rating. And honestly, I was a little disappointed by it. I was really hoping to like this story just because I like Jack and Jill and Every Heart a Doorway. But I felt that Seanan McGuire's writing projected a lot onto the reader of her opinions of gender norms and biases and the like. Which is fine to have your own opinion, but I felt like it took me out of the story way too much, and I didn't necessarily agree with her viewpoints 100%. So for me, it was just a little irritating, I guess, to read through. I just kind of, because these stories are so short, I expect to be brought into them fairly quickly. But at the beginning, explaining Jack and Jill's parents and just what they do with the girls and how they make one girl wear frilly dresses and not get dirty, and the other girl play sports and play with the boys and the things like that. It just, and then her opinions on the fact, it really brought me out of the story, so I wasn't able to kind of form my own opinions and of the characters and those sorts of things. So I was just disappointed in that. I'm hoping that the rest of the series isn't like that. We shall see. I do plan to continue more with it. No, you can't see it in my viewfinder. Or I can't see it in my viewfinder, which means you can't see it. They're up there. But yes, I do have the next 2 books, so I do hope to continue them through the year. So yeah, hopefully things are projected less on the reader, but we shall see. So the next book I have is Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens, and I listened to this on Audible as well. It was a 31-hour and 49-minute audiobook that I gave a 3-star rating. I enjoyed it, but I think I've come to the decision that in order for me to enjoy classics more, which I do enjoy them already, but I think for me to enjoy the story more, I should probably relent a little on my not watching the movie or TV adaptation before I read the book if I'm interested in it. That way I can know the story a little bit better, and because classics, or like especially like Charles Dickens classics or Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, they were written to have word count and to be published in multiple parts. That way the income could continue with them. I think there's a lot that could be reduced from this that wouldn't take away from the story. So I think for me to get a better understanding of the important parts in the story, I should probably start watching the movies or TV adaptations before I read the books, and then I think I'll enjoy them a bit more. But this, you follow basically the life of Little Dorrit, or Amy Dorrit. She was born in the debtor's prison where her father is being held for a debt that he owes. And she has 2 siblings. She's the youngest of the siblings, but her mom passes away. I don't remember if it was in childbirth or of an illness after. And she basically steps into the role of being the matron of the family and making sure that her brother and sister aren't just sucked down by this situation that they're in. So she tries to push them out of the debtor's prison and trying to, earn incomes of their own and form lives for themselves outside of the prison. She meets this man named Arthur Clemens, who, is it Clemens or Clennon? Clennon, I think. Arthur, we'll stick with that. Who helps her out along the way, finds out an interesting tidbit of information about her father, which helps in his situation, and it's basically kind of a full circle of her life, basically from, how many times can I say basically? I'm sorry. Starting when she is born at the prison up until kind of the middle age of her life, I guess you would say. So yeah, I did enjoy this, but with classics I'm going to start watching the film adaptations, and I think I'll enjoy those more. So, but I did enjoy the story enough to where I do really want to watch the BBC series of it and see how I like the story in that format. The next 3-star read I have is The Mortal Instruments, or no, City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I read this as a buddy read with my friend Darshell over at Books and Planners. I will leave her channel linked down below in the description. We both have not read any books by Cassandra Clare or any of the like Shadowhunter books before, so we decided to do a buddy read of City of Bones to see if all the hype surrounding this book was worth it. I think I liked the book a little more than Darshell did. I read this physical copy, which is the I think it's the movie tie-in, and it was 485 pages. It was a pretty quick read. And basically, if you don't know what this is, you follow Clary Frey, who finds out her life isn't what it seems, and she meets these shadow hunters, and things take place from there. I thought it was decent enough to where I'll continue the story, but I do feel like this might be a little past my time. I don't have the nostalgic feelings of the Shadowhunter world like most people my age do, because I didn't read this at that age when it was popular. But Darshell and I, are planning to do a buddy read of City of Ashes for March. Yeah, this month. And it'll be interesting to see how the story continues and how we like it, if we want to continue reading these or not. I only have this book, and I do think I will unhaul it as well, just because if I want to get the entire series at some point, that one's not going to match any of the books, so I might as well buy like the box sets or something. And then I'm continuing City of Ashes in the audiobook format. So moving on to my 2 4-star reads. I didn't have any 5-star reads this month, but the first of the 4-star reads is my reread of Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I listened to this on audiobook just because I found that the other 2 were available and I wanted to continue the series, but I felt I needed a refresher. So I listened to Me Before You and I cried like I did before, and just got really sucked into the story, and I just really enjoyed it. So if you don't know what Me Before You is, you follow Lou, who lives in a town where the economy has hit pretty hard. The cafe she's working at is closed down and she has to find another job. She takes a job being a personal care assistant. I don't know what you would call her, a companion more or less to Will Trainer, who is a quadriplegic. He was injured in an accident, and it is for a 6-month fixed term. They develop a really strong friendship and relationship throughout their time together, and events take place. It's got a sad ending. I won't say any more just in case you don't know about it and you don't want to be spoiled, but I enjoyed this. I do plan to rewatch the movie again with Emilia Clarke, and I can never remember his name, but I do know he's Finnick Odair from the Hunger Games. So yeah, a book I enjoyed. Wasn't surprised that it still held up because I only read it a couple years ago. And then, oh, did I say the time on that? I don't think I did. That one was a 14-hour and 42-minute audiobook. And then the last book I have, which I think is my favorite book for this month, and that is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. I read the physical form of this book, which I have right here, and it was 297 pages. I gave it a 4-star rating. And I just really enjoyed it. I liked the world building and the imagery in Margaret Rogerson's writing. I thought the relationship was interesting. It was kind of a quick burn relationship, which is more or less to be expected in a book under 300 pages. But yeah, I just really enjoyed her writing style. I enjoyed the characters. The plot was interesting. I haven't read, honestly, a whole lot of fae books, so I liked hearing about the different courts and just the things that were happening amongst them and how magic works between the courts and how Your magic might be stronger when you're in your court or in your lands versus when you're in like the core opposite you. So I thought that was really intriguing. And it was fun to kind of read about the Fae, and normally like my perception of them is kind of from the Aragon series, where Arya is this really amazing woman who can do everything. But in this, the Fae are not able to do like much of anything, like any sort of craft. The main character, Isabel, is a painter, and the Fae are so intrigued by human craft because they aren't able to do it. It physically hurts them to do it. So I thought that was an intriguing representation of the world and just the characters and whatnot. So basically the plot of this is that Isabel is a known painter among the Fae, and she gets the honor of painting the Autumn Prince, and he's got this weird thing going on with his eyes where basically what she can see is human emotion. So she paints human sorrow in his eyes, which makes him look weak in front of the other Fae because the Fae aren't known for being able to display emotion. So that's basically where our story starts, and things happen from there. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was beautiful writing. I'd be interested in seeing what else Margaret Rogerson has out, and just exploring more of the world of the Fae. So if you have any recommendations, I'm sure The Cruel Prince will be one. Please let me know down in the comments below. So in total, I read 8 books in the month of February. I read 969 pages, which is quite a bit for me, honestly. I do spend most of my time listening to audiobooks, which takes us to time read at 81 hours and 52 minutes. And then my average star rating was 3.1, which makes sense. Most of my ratings this month were 3-star, which is pretty average for me. So that is it for what I read in the month of March. I would love to know what some of your favorite books were. If you participated in the Enchantathon, if you have read any of these books, if your opinions differ on me on any of these books, please do let me know down in the comments below, and I will chat with you there until my next video. Bye!